Allow me to take you on a journey as we explore the work and successes of Dalisu, a chemical manufacturing company based in Piet Retief, Mpumalanga. They are one of the black industrialists in South Africa. Let us hear their story and just how they've emerged as recognizable industrialists amidst the various challenges that may have come their way. Nati Mhlumi, thanks gentlemen for agreeing to talk to me. And
yes, it's a
tell
pleasure.
me a little bit more about your very interesting story. I appreciate this moment. Now, your company was born, from what I gather, out of creating solutions for a problem or a challenge that existed, right? And it appears it's actually embedded in the name of your company, for that matter. Yeah. From, you want to go first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I mean, this concept that we came up with, we were sitting with Nati somewhere around 2015 when we actually decided that identified an opportunity where we could actually turn some of the byproducts generated from Impact, who was our employer then, and out of that discussion and conversation, we saw an opportunity for ourselves, as entrepreneurs, to commercialize that opportunity. And that's why in 2016 we formed Dalisu, which means creating a solution. And out of that, discussion, we looked at this venture where we could actually look at the byproducts that were posing as an environmental challenge into, a viable business for ourselves. And that's how this Dalisu was formed.
Sure. Now, there probably were some processes that took place for you to now find this particular solution. I mean, what happened? The problem was always there, or the challenge facing the company was always there.
Yeah.
And then, and probably the company was struggling to find a way around this particular problem. So, how did you arrive at the solution?
Look, thank you, Tim. I think there were quite a number of stages and processes that we embarked on, but mostly it was research and development. I mean, both our backgrounds, we are chemical engineers, and Impact as well. It's even though it's a packaging company, but it's got its own dedicated research and development section, which we embarked on together with them to come up with a solution, because we knew that there is something that we can do with these byproducts other than stocking them up in the different warehouses.
Mm-hmm. We were talking about, this is a paper manufacturing company,
yes.
Impact, right?
Yes.
And when we talk about the byproduct, what is that byproduct, and what was the solution to come out of the byproduct?
Look, the byproduct, Impact has got, within its process of paper making, they've got quite a number of byproducts, but our specific focus was mostly on the salt cake, which is high in content of sodium sulfate. And sodium sulfate in its pure form, you can use it within the detergent industry. And so that's where the actual concept came in. And also there was, you could also convert the sodium lignosulfonate, which was coming out on the same stream, convert it into a dust suppression product that we could use at the mines to suppress the dust on gravel roads.
Let me just spend a moment with those two byproducts and how they are applied, if you can tell me more.
Yes. If we start with the sodium lignosulfonate, which is a dust suppressant that's used in the mining industry. So this has lignin in it, which is left over from when you cook the wood to extract the fiber. So we actually beneficiate that stream into a stream that is high in solids content, so that we can easily transport it to the mines in its liquid form, although high in solids. And when we get to the mine, we are able to basically dilute it with water, so that we can apply it on the gravel road. So in that instance, we are able to address the water challenges that are there in South Africa, the reduction of water usage, but also in terms of complying with the dust regulations. So our product is able to achieve that. That is on the dust suppression side. But when we come to the sodium sulfate, so a highly purified sodium sulfate is used in the detergents as what they call an aiding filler, and we are also able to use it in the glass industry as well as a fining agent that's actually being used in the manufacturing of glass. So those are the two main industries that are using the highly purified sodium sulfate.
So I would like to believe that when it's applied in the mining sector, in the mining context, the coal mining, then it contributes to cleaner environments.
Yes.
By virtue of reducing the coal dust and so on.
Yes, yes. No, you're right. I mean, I think the focus, I mean, if you listen to the language in the mining sector at the moment, they talk about ESG, you know, environmental sustainability, governance. And I think that's where we also play a part in that, because you know, the product that we use, the sodium lignosulfonate, is an environmentally friendly product, you know, because it comes from, you know, the trees. So, and that's the main focus of the mines, where they are trying to reduce, you know, some of the environmental harm that whatever inputs that they use could actually contribute. And we believe we are able to contribute towards the reduction of, you know, the use of more harmful products in the mines.
So the detergent side of this byproduct that you came up with required that you set up your own plant. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me a bit more about that process, and you know, we'll talk about the assistance that you got along the way.
Yes. Look, I think we engaged a technology supplier because coming out of our vigorous research and development that we together undertook with Impact, we understood that we could purify the salt cake, which is high in sodium sulfate, but not to a level of a detergent. So what we needed to do was to convert a salt cake, which has got about 60 to 70% of sodium sulfate, all the way up to 99.5%, which is a detergent grade. So, and for us, we engaged a technology supplier. We understood that there was a company that could assist us to actually put in a greenfield project or to purify the salt cake. And the entire project took us almost 2 years, because closer to commissioning of the project, that's when the COVID hit in the year 2020. So we had to almost close our sites for almost 3 to 4 months while the entire country was all on hard lockdown, and then come back when we moved down to level 3. And of course, we got the assistance from DTI and IDC for us to be able to construct that plant. Yeah.
I was about to ask about that assistance, to say, but you know, if you're coming up with something new, it is very difficult, I suppose, to convince potential funders or supporters that yours is a viable business. So how did you go about convincing them in that regard?
Look, I think for Dalisu, one added advantage, there were quite a few of them, but one of the added advantages was that even though we started the company we registered it in 2016 and really started operating in 2017, we had a business that was already operational, the dust suppression, which was generating income. So at that time we were already an established business. But over and above that, the fact that we had already done all the legwork, that we could prove that we can convert these products through the technology that we had developed. And also there were quite a few requirements that were required from DTI and IDC. Issues around understanding the market, having spoken to the market, got in the letter of commitments from the market that if you produce the product at the specific specification, they will take it from there. So all of those combined together, when we took all of that business case to IDC and DTI, it sort of really spoke the story on our behalf, and we were able to get the funding that was required for us to build the plant.
And what was the commitment?
The commitment is almost 300 million rands. Mm-hmm. Of course, it came in the form of equity from the shareholders, as well as the loan from IDC.
Well, somebody might say, maybe the added advantage was that you are not a me too type of business that is unique. But did you come into, let's call it virgin territory here, or Did you have any competitors that you were going to come up against?
Yes, maybe to some extent when you say virgin territory, I think maybe that's where we actually played when we came into the market. Because, I mean, a highly purified sodium sulfate has always been used in the market. So to give you the context, I mean, the total consumption of sodium sulfate in South Africa is about 300,000 tons. So our plant's capacity is 30,000 tons per annum. So a tenth of that is actually being now produced locally. So when we look at the technology that we use, because I mean, even the focus for us is about, you know, issues around heat integration, you know, environmental friendliness, and things like that. So we are able to, I would say, in a sense, we are the only local manufacturer that is able to manufacture the detergent grade of sodium sulfate that we are able to. So, but in the past, I mean, and even now, I mean, the bulk of the product is actually imported, you know, from China, India, Spain. And, you know, for us to be able to produce that locally has given us, you know, a big boost because, I mean, the demand is very high. So we are able to actually displace some of the imports that come into South Africa.
So, you know, in that 300,000 tons import sourced overseas, you're now able to contribute locally produced input, which I suppose is what, you know, we talk about local beneficiation, it would fall in that category. But the competitiveness, how are you competing with your overseas counterparts? Maybe pricing wise, quality wise, it's already been established that you are up there with them.
Yeah, look, I think for us, the issue of Russia and Ukraine at the moment is sort of opened the market a bit because, I mean, as my colleague has said, I mean, we almost all our competitors, they get their products, I mean, from abroad, so it's an imported product. So, and the issues at the ports that have been as a result of the issues around Russia and Ukraine, so it sort of made the product being scarce in the country. And so that has opened up the market a bit. I mean, some of the customers that have actually in our stable now are people that when we started before every other, the issue with Russia and Ukraine came on board, they were not even prepared to talk to us. But on the basis that they need the product and their streams have actually been closed or been reduced, so they are, speaking to us now. So the competition really for Dalisu is, we offer, a basket of advantages for any customer who buys from us. On the basis that it's locally produced, we guarantee supply. We're not going to come to you and say, look, unfortunately, we can't supply you this month because our ship is stuck somewhere else. We use a raw material which comes locally, and we beneficiate it, and we make a product locally, and we send that onto the market. And also price-wise as well. We don't have issues around forwarding and clearing all of those costs that actually get added onto the selling price. Our selling price is really what we make, we incur to make the products out of. So we even though when you speak to customers, they are not willing to open up about the price they pay, but some of the pointers do tell us that we are quite competitive if we're not below. Based on what of us,
maybe global prices of that. Yeah. But your client mix, do you have some multinational sourcing from you, or is it maybe smaller producers of detergents who are sourcing the stuff from you?
Yeah, look, I think the strategy that we embarked on, both on our sodium lignosulfonate in the mines as well as our sodium sulfate, was that we will we will focus only on the we will try and create such a large base such that if something happens in one customer, then we're not stuck, because we had some of the multinational nationals approaching us, telling us to just not worry about the market. They're going to take all our products once it's been produced. But for us, what whilst it was very attractive in the sense that we didn't have to invest anything on the marketing side of things, but the challenge is that if you go that route and if something happens, if that particular customer goes down for a week or two on maintenance shut, you can't really, you've got no offtake for your product. So so we decided to actually go with a wider base of customers. So we've got multinationals, we've got also some of the smaller guys who are, I mean, you know, a very small operation, but also we've got a mid-range operation. So we've got a basket, and as I said, both on the sodium sulfates as well as on the sodium lignosulfonate. And that has actually worked better for us, and we've seen that and really just understood that had we gone with one big customer, we'd have really had issues when something happens to one of them. Thank you.
Let's talk about economic impact of your operations then, from the employment of people at your plant and subcontractors. How do you explain the economic
if
impact?
you look at the location where the Dalisu sodium sulfate plant is located, we are in the rural area, within Piet Retief, the Mkondo municipality. So I think even when we started during the construction phase, we were quite clear that we also want locals to benefit out of that. If you look at the number of jobs that were created during the construction phase, we employed just under 400 individuals, and I would say a significant number came from the local community, because what we also did was that we formed what we called a steering committee that consisted of all the stakeholders within, from your tribal authority, the municipality, the councillors and everybody else. So in that instance, we were able to leverage, the potential and the skills that were there within that area. I think that's the first part. But the second part as well, in terms of also engaging or involving some of the local businesses on a subcontracting base. We were able to, be it on the civil side, the electrical contractors, as well, we were able to do that. So I think on that basis, we were able to demonstrate, the goodwill that Dalisu was coming into that area. But even after the construction, once we were in commercial production, we made it clear. Obviously, this is a highly specialized, chemical plant, highly automated. So we have, chemical engineers. In fact, the bulk of our employees are chemical engineers. So, and we found some of those skills, from the local communities as well. So I would say in terms of the economic benefit, we're able to contribute both, during the construction phase, but we continue to do that even now, when we engage on the transportation side, but also with the permanent employees that we have.
Diversity of employees?
Look, we've got, it's almost 60% black female youth, and then the 40% it's male.
Okay.
Yeah. Maybe the one point to add also, which is quite an interesting thing for us. When we talk about involvement of the communities, because we work a lot with the mines, especially on the dust suppression side of things. We've got different models that we work with the mines on. Some of the mines want to deal with us, some of the mines want our products, but they always prefer us to come through a local company. So what typically happens is that when they award us a business on the dust suppression, so they would ask us to work with a local person or a local company, and we upskill that company. So we will get these guys and we call them into one place. We take them through training, and after a few years, then they are sort of able to, that we give them products and they are able to go and apply it onto the mine. And that has sort of assisted us. There are a few companies that we have actually worked, and we continue to work with them on that basis.
Let me ask the final question then. Listening to this story, it gives me a good impression of what the whole Black Industrial Scheme is all about, and I would like to hear your own impressions. If you're able to leverage the scheme to then be able to set up a plant, create employment, have economic impact, it's something to appreciate. But from your own view, what do you think of the Black Industrialist Scheme, Muhlum?
I mean, I think, yeah, in a nutshell, if this scheme was not there, because even before we started, to approach the GTI, we had to look at the different incentive schemes that were available, to assist us in terms of kickstarting this project. And I think for us, if this scheme was not there, I mean, it would have been very difficult for us to, on our own, go and knock at the banks and say, this is Mhlomi, this is Nati, we've got this great concept, and we want to do it. I mean, obviously, you look at the banks, they want a bankable business case, but more than anything, they want signed contracts. And if you think about it, at that point, I mean, with the sodium sulfate, it was still a concept, and we had done a lot of R&D, we had done a lot of lab scale, experiments just to show that this was possible. But at that level, I mean, when you compare the DTI with the DFIs, in terms of the approach, because it assisted us, because we only had to look at getting the letters of intent that says, guys, you onto something good, but demonstrate to us that you are able to give what we want, and then at the right price, and then we'll give you the business. And on that basis, when we approached the DTI and the IDC, they were able to basically fund this project. So, I mean, if this scheme was not there, I mean, I think it would have been quite a challenge for us to be able to put this into action. I think, secondly, I mean, if you look at the objectives of the Black Industrialist, in terms of, industrializing or stimulating the manufacturing sector, I mean, if you look at the participation in the manufacturing space, I mean, you don't see a lot of black businesses there. And I think this, for us, is a good example that once you have a good concept and you are able to demonstrate that with the resources that you've been given, you are able to produce what you set out to do, I mean, it can assist a lot more aspiring black entrepreneurs out there. Yeah.
Nati, let me give you the final word on this. I mean, the journey that you've traveled with IDC and DTI, what was the experience like? And you can talk about the future plans, the vision of the company.
Thank you. Look, I mean, the journey for us was quite an exciting journey, but also a very challenging journey. I think the concept of the Black Industrialist Scheme also, I guess, it's a very good scheme. But I mean, sometimes when you speak to some of the aspiring black industrialists, they do find that the actual process that is involved in application, we didn't really pick that up ourselves, but I think one of the things that has been really been highlighted as a stumbling block is just the actual process to apply and get through
the bureaucracy around
it.
Yeah.
And I mean, as the president would call it, a red tape around it. I think it's one of the issues that have been highlighted. But for us, I mean, the journey has been very exciting, has been very challenging at times, because I mean, if you of course listen to our story, is that we really started this from scratch. I mean, both our dust suppression and sodium sulfate, I mean, there was nothing existing. So sometimes when there's nothing, then you really walk in the office, you really is like, so what do we do? It's a first day at work, we've got no business, so, but the journey has been really very, very exciting. And the future plans for Dalisu at the moment is that the sodium sulfate side of our business, we are completely sold out. So our plans at the moment is to really try and increase our capacity. We are limited with the actual plant that we ended up going with, on the basis that we knew that most of the volume was on the stockpiles, and we understood that after a few years you will run out of that. So we couldn't go very big. We needed to ensure that, because of course if you go big, then you have to invest. The actual investment required is quite high. So our future investment now is to at least increase our capacity and try and make sure that we capture the market that is available. On the dust suppression side of things, really Dalisu is aspiring to become one of the dust suppression product supplier in this country, at least as well as extend ourselves to Africa, because we do believe there is markets. There's still quite a lot of markets that we need to tap into locally, as well as at least in the sub-Saharan region.
Gentlemen, very compelling story. Thanks very much for spending time with me and telling me this fantastic story. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank
Sure.
you too.
So, working for Dalisu Holdings has changed my life in a sense that I remember before I came here, I wasn't actually working, which is a good thing. So I get to have an income and actually be able to look after my kids. And one other thing, it has given me an opportunity to also grow as well. You don't get an opportunity to actually work for a company from scratch that has never existed before. So you get an opportunity to just grow with the company, learn things that people maybe in the next 5 years to come would have come here having things implemented and having put in place. But then as for me, it's given me the opportunity to just put the things or the systems that I'm currently putting in place together, and the trial, seeing what works, what doesn't work. It's a good learning curve that I feel like for every risk control officer, for some risk control officers, it might just be a dream. So for me, it's a great opportunity, and that I will just value and just appreciate my whole life. I'm currently a risk control officer. I see myself as Dalisu's risk control manager in the future, near future, and yeah. Okay, so working for Dalisu. Okay, so we're working with very young people, very outspoken, but then yeah, it's very interesting. The people here are friendly, young and outspoken and very educated as well. There is prospect of growth in the company, Dalisu, due to the fact that I know we do deal with the suppression, and then this is our first big plant, and I see more sodium sulfate plant being built around South Africa. So with that, yeah, I do see growth in the company.